Let it be known that Jean hated nothing more than stuffy suits and high-class society. He hadn't had much chance to sample the latter. Weiss was the closest to it, and it wasn't like she invited him to any formal events. But their arrival and seating in the Concert Theatre was enough for him. It turned out that Nicholas's friend had been even more generous than expected, providing them seats in a closeted VIP area. It was little more than a balcony that offered a fantastic view over the theatre, while also being limited to only 8 or so guests. There were numerous such balconies across the top of the theatre, with each one having its own waiting area, bar, and bathrooms. It was a nice touch that allowed them to skip the queues and not worry about the people fighting for seats. It should have been just that, were it not for the fact that the Ark family stuck out like sore thumbs. It didn't matter that after the ill-fated train journey, they had retired to the hotel to unpack and to get their finest suits, nor that they had fought and squabbled over the showers to ensure they looked their best. To the snobs around them, their lack of branded wear and the sheer size of their family was enough to have noses raised at the sight of them. Of course, no one dared approach Nicholas Ark, who could cut an imposing figure despite his black suit and bow tie. But it didn't stop the dirty looks. Still, it was preferable to the interested look that the fat bastard kept sending Sable whenever she wasn't looking. Jean kept that greasy man's eyes as they roamed over his sister once more, who looked beautiful in her deep purple dress. Too beautiful, perhaps. "Try it," he mouthed to the man that was at least twice her age. "Try it and see what happens. See what I'll do to you." The man wisely looked away. It wasn't that he didn't enjoy the concert. It was only the first half and Weiss had yet to appear. Apparently, it was going to be an orchestra up until the first intermission, and then Weiss should have her appearance and songs after. It made him shake his head in amusement that she could honestly consider Vale's most expensive orchestra a supporting act. They were fabulous enough, the music deep and invigorating, resonating in the soul and shocking many into silence. He could close his eyes and forget where he was, lost in the notes and emotions, but for the fact he was stuck in a crowded concert hall surrounded by people he didn't know. He wasn't sure if it was a recent development, or one he'd always had, but as far back as he could remember, he hated crowds of people. It wasn't the same in Beacon with his teams or the other students. He knew who they were, if not by name then by face. Even those who could and would betray him, he knew. Here, however, he didn't have that same luxury. Any one of these people could be a danger. There were just too many, and they were all crowded shoulder to shoulder. That he had Amber on one side and Lavender on the other made no difference. He could feel the person sat not a meter behind him, and there was one before him too. A hand touched his leg. "Are you okay?" Lavender's green eyes flickered with brown locked into his. The girl brushing back some ringlets of blonde hair over her bare shoulder. Lavender was the closest to his age, only 8 months younger, and the result of the premature birth. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," he whispered back, ignoring the shushing from Amber. "Just uncomfortable. Ignore me." She looked back to the stage, apparently taking his advice, though a moment later he felt her hand touched his, fingers wrapping around his palm. Jean let out a silent chuckle, accepting the comfort from her even if it wasn't necessary. Wasn't he the older one who was supposed to look after her? A deep sigh burst from both her lungs, body relaxing as he forcefully made himself lean back into the seat. There would be no one here who would attack him. He was being foolish in the extreme, allowing paranoia and fear to reign over him. It was Vale. It had to be. The moment their train had arrived, his good moon had vanished. Familiar streets and structures bringing back unwanted memories of so many previous lives. It hadn't overwhelmed him. It never did. But it had put his nerves on a razor edge. He didn't want to be in Vale. Not so close to the start of Beacon. And certainly not after either. "It's fine. This is for the weekend only," then you're gone. Blake had been a coincidence. He'd always known she had abandoned Adam on a train. He hadn't expected it to be the one they were on, but that was just bad luck. How many trains travelled through Forever 4 anyway? This would be fine. It would all work out. So long as he enjoyed his time and didn't do anything silly. With that calming thought, he was able to sit through the next hour or so of enchanting music, clapping at the end of each song, as did his sisters. It looked like there was more than just his musical mind that enjoyed this. His mother and father sat beside one another, her head resting on his shoulder as he cupped both her hands in his. Coral looked awkward as hell next to them, clearly trying to distance herself from the romantic aura. He grinned as her eyes met his, asking him to switch places. Not happening. She deserved it for the literature crap she'd put him through. Besides, maybe some hands-on experience watching romance occur right next to her would help her on that next story she tried to write. He wasn't the only one to ignore her pleas for help. The other girls all focused on the stage with an intensity that might be considered a little too determined. They really were skilled players, and while none of them used the guitar like he did, the instrument not suited to the music they were playing, he could still appreciate both it and the gestures from his parents. By the time the final song was finished and the conductor turned towards them to bow, Jean was among many others as he rose to applaud them. That was magical. Lavender gushed as the family filed out into the waiting hall for the intermission. Nicholas had gone to collect drinks for them as they waited. The family, choosing to stand, said that the more elderly patients could take seats. It was alright. Hazel fought to hide her smile behind a mask of indifference. Not as good as metal, but it was alright. What? Jade teased. Not enough sore-throating screaming? The two of them descended into the familiar argument as to whose music taste was superior. It was something the rest of them were more than adept at ignoring. "You're looking forward to the Schnee girl?" Coral dug an elbow into his side, before wincing at how hard his skin was. Or it was good for more than just deflecting dangerous attacks after all. "I hear she's a real fox." "Surprised you didn't make a try on her." "Not my type." Jean shrugged. "Not your type?" Coral sounded agape. "She's like super rich, super famous. Not to mention pretty hot from what I hear. What's not to like? I swear if you say personality, I'm going to laugh you out the room. There's no way Mrs. Green has personality." "How about rich and powerful, with an army of robots that could hunt me down?" Jean grinned back. "Besides, she's a Snee. They're not going to be interested in something casual, are they?" "I guess that would be a bit of a scandal. Such a shame. Star-crossed lovers, one held back by the responsibility of their family, the other by his wasteful nature and the lack of redeeming qualities. It could have been a plot for my new book." Jean rolled his eyes. "I'll have you know, I have a lot of redeeming qualities. I'm just not legally or morally allowed to use them on you." A few of the other sisters reared away with uncomfortable expressions. Coral always took as good as she got, however, and simply grinned at him. "Kinky. Maybe one day we can try them out." "Coral, you two are sick." Sable hissed and drew her twin aside. Coral, for her part, simply laughed at the drama, ignoring the telling off she was receiving. She'd never learn. "Did we miss something?" Nicholas asked as he came back to the group, balancing a tray before him as Juniper did the same with another. Going to the bar for Chang drinks was never an easy task, but the two had perfected it over the last decade or two. "Nothing unusual." Jean grinned as he tried to snatch the most alcoholic drink from the tray. Sapphire batted his hand aside and took it for herself, the looks from his parents reminding him that he technically wasn't old enough for that yet. He really missed alcohol. Just Coral and Jean being their usual selves, Sapphire sighed. "I'm not sure where Mother and I went wrong. Don't worry, sweetie. Junpei laid a hand on her shoulder. "I just blame Nikki for those two." Nicholas rolled his eyes at the comment, a few giggles coming from the other girls. It was interrupted by a figure approaching them, a soft tap of shoes on marble, accompanied by what sounded like a metal cane. "Well, I must say it is a surprise to see you here, Nicholas." The voice was familiar, immediately so, to the point that Jean found himself instinctively fighting the urge to relax. It was a common issue when he met his friends again, on every other time he went to Beacon. The ease at which he could fall into trusting them just through the sound of their voice. It had actually caused a few problems, once or twice. Friends he hadn't rightfully gotten to know feeling more than a little awkward at how friendly he was with them. That wasn't quite the same, however, for as much as Jean respected the man, they'd never been what one might call friends. Ozpin, and neither had he with Nicholas, if his father's growl was anything to go by. Jean turned from his family to look at the man, drinking in the familiar sight. Typical Ozpin. He was still wearing the same grey suit he always wore, even to what was essentially a black tie event. Not to mention that, unlike every other person here, he had been allowed to bring his weapon with him, the silvery cane resting between both hands as the man leaned on it. Jean's relationship with Ozpin was interesting, to say the least. It would have been easy to hate the man for what the headmaster had put him through once or twice, in those lives where Jean had tried to reveal the truth in one way or another. Death in a mental asylum was one thing, but the tacit agreement to advance interrogation techniques from Ironwood had been much worse. How easy it would have been to never forgive him for that, to hold that cruelty over his head for all eternity. It would have been a waste too. Ozpin was no friend of Jean Arc's, but nor was he an enemy either. In fact, the man was at best an unrelated ally. The man's intentions were clear: defend Beacon, and through that, all avail. He actively worked in the shadows to try and limit Cinder's influence, and Keimamari did his best to kill her. That he refused to trust and believe Jean, when the truth was already so incredible as to be ridiculous? He didn't hold that against the man. Pain was translucent. Death, for him, temporary. What was there to hate about a man trying his best, even if the methods he used didn't always lay parallel to his own? But right now, here in this one life where Jean was determined not to enter Beacon, not to have anything to do with the horror that lay ahead, Ozpin was a very real threat. "You've met Nicholas Arc, Galinda?" he asked of the woman beside him, who had clearly made more effort to adapt to the dress code. Her blonde ringlets framed her face as they always did, but it was the first time Jean had ever seen the stone woman in a black ball gown. She looked good. "We've met once or twice. Nice to see you again." "What are you doing here, Ozpin?" his father demanded. One silver brow rose as the headmaster held both arms wide. "I am here to listen to the final concert of a talented singer, as I am sure you are. With term approaching, it will be a rare opportunity for me to experience such an event. As I had an extra ticket, Galinda graciously accepted my invitation to come along. Don't play games. I mean, why are you talking to me and my family?" "Nicholas, we are not enemies, so I don't know where this animosity comes from. I simply wish to greet an old student of mine and see how they were doing." "You taught, Dad?" The words slipped from Jean's mouth before he could think of better of them. Nicholas spared a frown past one shoulder, but Ozpin took the chance to look past the older man to him. "I was not the headmaster back then. In fact, I believe it was my only second or third year on the job. I taught politics and history." "That was quite a long time ago," Nicholas said. "Quite. I don't need you to remind me of my age, Nicholas. It's an indication enough when my former students have raised families of their own." Ozpin paused to look at each of them, his eyes rolling over each girl in turn before coming to settle on him. Jean met the familiar gaze, not at all feeling uncomfortable. It was just how Ozpin was. "I must say, I was quite disappointed that none considered Beacon Academy for the tuition. None of them are becoming hunters. Juniper stepped forward to place a hand on her husband's shoulder, the man calming down at the look she gave him. The tension in the air seemed to fade as he took a few quick breaths. Jean wondered if anyone else had seen what he had, that both Nicholas and Osmond had been making subtle motions of aggressive intent, as though each was prepared for the conversation to come to blows. The white fingers that gripped Galinda Goodrich's crop told him that she had. I haven't trained any of them, so it's not you personally, Osmond. They simply aren't joining any academies. Truly? Osmond looked genuinely surprised. I hadn't realized. I apologize if I assumed anything. You know that most hunters offer their children at least some training. It felt only natural to ask. There's no harm done. Juniper took the chance to insert herself into the conversation, gripping his father's hand in hers. Our family is just here to enjoy the music. Our son wishes to be a musician himself. Oh? Is that so? Well, there's no finer person to take inspiration from than Miss Schnee. She is the same age as yourself, Mr. Jean took the headmaster's hand in his, giving it a firm shake. Jean, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing her performance. Jean-Arc. The man tested the words, repeating it over and over as though trying to recall some piece of information. Jean's shoulders tensed. There shouldn't be any reason for the headmaster to remember his name, not when he hadn't applied to Beacon this time. He was supposed to be a single face among thousands of others. I don't think you've met him, Nicholas interrupted. Osmond released Jean's hand as he stepped back. The man's face was as neutral as ever, though there was still a certain tenseness to his muscles. Jean had never seen his father so angry, and he didn't understand it either. This had to be more than Silver. There was no way Osmond could have been responsible for that. Not when she was his older sister and Osmond had apparently only been relatively new teacher when Nicholas started at Beacon. I was just surprised by the young man's grip. The headmaster waved it off. It was very strong for someone who is untrained. He felt McAllister's? Jean realized in surprise. Perhaps even his aura too. It wasn't something he'd ever have thought to look for in another, but he had developed a bit of a scar tissue on his fingertips. Most of it came from his guitar, but there was some that mistakenly came from learning to wield a weapon. His aura? It was said that some people could sense it to some degree. Pyrrha had been able to have a rough idea of how big an aura was when she touched someone. Who was to say Osmond didn't have the similar talent? He has his aura, Nicholas admitted, frown deepening. And we have done some training, but only so we can learn to protect himself. Your training must be better than what we offer. The headmaster's lips turned up at the edges, especially if it allows a child to single-handedly kill a beowulf, unarmed, no less. Jean tense. Nicholas did the same, even as Juniper watched on in worry. The only ones who didn't show any reaction were his sisters, for even Galinda's face registered surprise. Clearly she hadn't known that little rumor, and neither should have Osmond. How did... Jean tried to cut the words off, but once more the man's attention fell on him. Grim attacks are closely monitored by Vale, particularly when it comes to vulnerable villagers that might require an aid. An attack on a civilian was logged and sent to the city, though that wouldn't have raised such a fuss, were it not for the fact that said child also managed to slay the beast without aura. I must say, young man, that is certainly a feat few can boast of. If you would like, I could see about honing that ability further. Osmond? Miss Galinda tugged on his arm, clearly uneasy at the growing anger radiating off his father. I heard that you fought to protect someone you deeply cared for. That's an admirable trait, and one that all hunters aspire to. Perhaps you would consider attending Beacon this year, Mr. Ark. I think you'd be a fine addition to... Nope. But... Pardon? If he could have filmed Osmond's expression and put it on a wall, he would have. The man's lips parted in a small circle, even as his brow rose higher up his face. Even his eyes seemed to grow behind his glasses, before an ironclad control snapped back into place. "Thank you for the offer," Jean said, "but I do not wish to be a hunter." Beside him, he could feel his father relax, the threat of combat slipping from the air as the man let out a long sigh of relief. Jean took the opportunity to step behind him, using his father as a shield against the attention of Beacon's head. "There you have it, husband," Nicholas grinned. "Now if you'll excuse us, we have a concert to get back to." There was no response from the headmaster, other than him stepping out of the way as the family of 10 marched by. Jean kept his eyes locked on his father's back, resisting the urge to look at Osmond with some kind of apology. He didn't hate the man. He never would, but that didn't mean he felt no guilt of what was essentially a decision to abandon them to their fate. "Next time, Osmond," he promised. "Next time I've earned enough time beforehand to make a difference, then I'll come and help you protect everyone." That was his promise to all of them. Still, he couldn't help but consider as he sat back down in the plush seats, just as the lights started to dim, how random to meet with the two of them right here. Their reasons made sense. Osmond was as much a public figure as Weiss Snee, and with her attending Beacon, maybe this was meant to be as a sign of support. Or maybe it was just as the man had said, a little bit of relaxation before school started. It just seemed odd that they happened to share the exact same balcony and the same VIP section. I'm reading too much into this. Dad got tickets from the organizers for saving a family member. Of course they give him the best as thanks. Osmond is a famous figure and doubtless pretty rich himself. It's not like he would need to save cash and sit down there with everyone else. Vale was getting to him. It seemed first with Blake, now with his former teachers. As Weiss stepped out into the stage, he tried to relax, trusting in her to take his mind off things. Though why was she wearing her flipping combat uniform, he had no idea. Couldn't she have come in a dress or a gown? The audience clapped loudly in anticipation. Jean joining in half-heartedly as he strained his eyes to see her better. From such a distance she was nothing more than a speck of white, pale skin illuminated each time a camera went off in the crowd. How odd. To think that the first time he'd seen her he had fallen so deeply in love. A foolish notion he'd been more attracted to her looks and some strange idea of what he thought he wanted in a woman. Was this what she had thought of when he kept approaching her? Flashing lights and screaming fans? He could see why she'd always looked so put out. Over time and the strange magic of repeating lives, they had become somewhat closer, though never as much as his original self might have wished. Wife was a conflicted figure, a distant friend at best. She had always been loyal to her team, spending more time with Ruby and the other two than she did with him or even Pyrrha. But they had been friends in their own way, enough to watch each other's backs whenever things went bad, as they inevitably did. That had always been enough for him, and in some way he could tell it was enough for her too. Blue eyes drifted shut as she began to sing a haunted melody, accompanied ever so softly by the orchestra, though they dared not overshine her in volume or quality. The crowd went silent. No cameras dared to flash and no person dared to open their mouth to speak. It was beautiful, almost like an ocean in the way her voice would rise with a sudden surge, gripping at his heart before crashing back down again, drawing him in with it. If there had been any question as to her skill, any as to whether she might have attained such a chord through her name or wealth, then this performance surely silenced them. Why had she kept such talent hidden from everyone at Beacon? Or the bigger question, why was she throwing this away to become a huntress at all? The effort that must have been required to become so good, all the hours spent practicing and working, only to put it all aside and do something else with her life? She had her reasons. She always did. Maybe it was family, commitment, or a desire to escape Atlas. It wasn't like she would ever admit the truth to him. Maybe Ruby knew, seeing how much the two trusted one another. But Ruby was worth that trust, and definitely wouldn't have revealed such information to him if Weiss wanted it private. The sad part was that it wasn't any of his business. He wouldn't be going to Beacon, so he would never meet Weiss, Ruby, or anyone else. This would be a life they would live without him. He idly wondered who would be on his team without him. There were simply scores of students who had been accepted but failed initiation. Some due to not being strong enough, often rescued by the teachers who watched over them. Others simply because they did not reach the relics in time, finding that they had all been taken. Beacon had limited resources after all. They couldn't cater to everyone. Maybe one of those random people would find Pira Nikos their partner. Did that not mean he was consigning them to death as well? With a shake of his head, Jean dispelled such mundane thoughts. Whatever happened was already going to happen. Whether he was there or not wouldn't change the end result. One final time, Jean rose alongside his family, applauding furiously as the small girl dipped at a low curtsy. He could vaguely hear Juniper talking about how sweet and cute she was. Such a little doll. It almost made him want to burst out laughing. Weiss did look that at first, but she was as cute and cuddly as a Beowulf, with the temper to match. She hadn't earned the moniker Ice Queen for nothing. "Weiss Snee, ladies and gentlemen," and Curator cried as he walked out into the stage, pointing to the young woman who was even then backing away through the curtains. The applause grew louder in response to the man's words, with more than a few flowers being thrown towards the stage. It somehow seemed so very wise that she wouldn't stay for it at all. The suited man waited for the applause to die down, standing center stage as people returned to their seats. Once there was silence, he brought his microphone back to his lips to speak. "And a thank you to all of you who have come here today to see Miss Snee's final performance, the proceeds of which are going to many good causes across Vale." I'm sure they will. Of course, the charity's directors would no doubt take their share. But before the night comes to our magnificent closure, we are proud to announce that there will be a mystery raffle, with the prize being one final chance to meet Miss Snee before she ends her career in the musical world. There was nothing unusual about it. He'd never been to this event before, so no doubt this happened every time. Odd to imagine that Weiss had been through the same Pyrrha had with fans, especially considering how his partner had admitted once or twice that she originally felt put off by Weiss's actions before initiation. You'd think Weiss would have known better if she went through the same. Who knew? Maybe without his interference, Weiss would get the partner she had originally desired. He had no idea how she handled Ren and Nora, the latter specifically, but it was amusing to imagine. He didn't have to worry about anything though, since there were over 40,000 people here and the chances of him winning were Jean-Arc! If you will make your way backstage, you are our grand winner. Congratulations. Oh my God. Lavender whispered, despite the rest of the family cheering and clapping. What are the odds? 40,000 to 1, he growled. Almost statistically impossible? It could be. Maybe there was a small chance. His hands gripped the armrest so hard he feared they might break. No. Luck was one thing. Chance another. Blake on the train? The fact that it was their train at all? Now that he thought about it, why had he been on a train that was a half passenger, half cargo? What was the point of doing things that way? He'd written it off as an accident. Bad luck. Then Ozpin and Miss Goodwitch? Again, more poor luck for him. They happened to share the same balcony and the man appeared to know about Jean killing the Beowulf. What if it hadn't been luck at all? Wait. The Beowulf? Something that had never happened in any of his lives. Bad luck? Again? For a monster to somehow sneak past all the border guards, the patrols, Nicholas, and a range of other houses filled with innocent people? Impossible. Literally impossible. The odds too small that there was no conceivable way they could have all happened in such quick succession, without something interfering to push things along. But that was madness. Surely. The events that changed, things that went wrong, they always happened because of him trying to change the timeline. If he killed Cinder, then things got worse because the revolution happened without her leadership. Adam was a far bigger monster than Cinder in some regards, but he hadn't changed anything this time. The only thing that was different was the fact that he wasn't attending Beacon. Perhaps you should consider attending Beacon this year, Mr. Ark. I think you would be a fine addition. No, surely not. How could his refusal to enter Beacon cause so much? How could it put his family at risk, nearly kill his mother? Manipulate everything to turn out this way? Go on, Jean. His mother beamed, as two men came to escort him to his meeting. One took a position on either side of him, leading him down well-lit corridors filled with people clapping and whistling. He felt like he was being escorted to his own execution. I refuse. No matter what happens, I refuse to let this end with me and Beacon. I don't know if this is my semblance, Osborn, or fate itself. This means nothing. I won't be roped into it again. Well, that is the end of this chapter. I am terribly sorry it has taken me so long to get this one out. I have been extremely busy in my real world. I have a very low immune system and I get sick quite often. Plus, I have a very rare medical disease that stops me from doing a lot of things. So if you enjoyed it, I hope you leave a like and subscribe, comment. It always brings like a smile to my face reading what people think. I do this because it's fun, not because I want something out of it, but I genuinely enjoy it, and no matter what, I am going to finish it and start another. It might take a while some days, but this will never be abandoned. I'm not the type of person to abandon anything. Again, if you enjoyed it, that's great. I hope you all have a wonderful day wherever you are.